I had to know my wife for like a couple of years before I, So I think that.
Well, we don't say whether I made a good choice or not. That's what we're talking about.
But anyway, my point is, right, there are different opportunities, there are different stages at which, and we as individuals, I think VCs are individuals, so we get excited by different things, and so to a certain extent, right, if you have wild traction in something, but again, it's a team of people who you don't particularly relate to, that's not a deal that really gets done at August Capital, right? So, but it may get done somewhere else, or you have a very specific focused vertical, but you're doing really interesting stuff in that. That might get done at one firm, it might not get done in another. So I think that there isn't a real answer like, oh, this is when it's a venture fundable deal or whatever. And Y Combinator is a great example. I mean, so hugely wide range of things. There's a small amount of money put in, but a lot of brain power. And when are those? Which ones of those are funded? Paul would say we're sort of arbitrary, and which ones we fund and don't. And
if you're like Scrib or let's say Zopney, those wouldn't have been venture deals. Right?
I think we got to be really careful here, right? Because everything's a situation. We've invested in several Y Combinator startups, and I'll be really brief.
Sure.
Let me finish. The smallest check was $500,000. First check we wrote was $500,000. The largest check was $4.5 million.
So how many checks under $1 million do you write in a year?
Oh, geez, I don't know the exact numbers.
Well, come on, I'm sure you do know.
But I'm going to take Dave's wonderful point.
I bet you guys do less than $2 million.
It must not matter because I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, it's easily a third of our checks. People don't understand.
A third of your checks are less than $1 million.
Seriously? So I'll give you an example. Rocky.
Seriously.
Rocky was a wonderful.
I cannot fucking believe it.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, and your powers of articulation are particularly impressive. Look, if you look at some of the nicest companies we're invested in, I'll use Rocky.com. I pick it randomly because it's top of mind, right? $300,000. That was the first check we wrote.
Okay, so that's a data point, but that's not a sample size. I guess I'm trying to say.
Redback.
You guys are trying to. But I mean, the size of your fund is huge. You guys need to put money.
No, it's not actually. How big is our fund?
I'm guessing north of $500 million.
You'd be wrong.
Okay.
The current fund we're investing at is $400 million. The last one was $375.
Sorry, I was off by half. Okay. I'm obviously wrong. And so if you're putting money to work in this fund, you're putting a third.
We don't put money to work. This is not how we think about it. We're company builders. We look for opportunities to build great companies, and we invest the amount of money necessary to reach meaningful milestones. That's how we think about it.
All right. I'm trying to play to your strength. Obviously,
no, you're wrong. I want to make a point.
Teresa, where do you guys like to invest?
I want to make a point. I'm not saying that the Sequoia way is the only way to be successful. I have colleagues that write huge checks. They use terms like putting money to work, and they return fabulous returns to their limited partners. There's nothing wrong with that. But the Sequoia way of doing it, and we're not alone, there's probably another half dozen very nice funds that work that way, is very different than the ones that put money to work.
Okay? Fair enough. Mr. Hornick, how many sub $1 million checks did your firm write last year?
A few.
So that would be less than 3?
I'm trying to do the math. I'm looking at what did we do last year. But truthfully, it's not the norm, right? That's not the norm.
Right.
If there's an interesting opportunity, then great. We were happy to do it, and we would completely agree. I mean, it's about building interesting companies. So we've had a couple of interesting, smart entrepreneurs with whom we've worked in the past who say, "Hey, we're thinking about X, Y, and Z," and we say, "Great, here's $500,000, and let's build an interesting. Let's see if there's an interesting business to be built." On the other hand, I have another company where great, smart entrepreneurs who I liked and had worked with in the past, and I gave them $35 million, right? And so I don't think either of those is the norm for me or necessarily for August. On the other hand, we describe ourselves as systematically opportunistic. We look for the opportunity to do something smart.
I don't mean to be adversarial, so let's look at more
Damn
practical. I do mean to be entertaining. So,
fuck you.
Maybe another way to look at that question is how many deals do you guys dive in and do where you're the first check, whether or not it's the size of the check, versus an angel invested first and then you brought the deal to you?
I think that the vast majority of opportunities, someone else has put money in. And again, this is why I think that there is such a thing as too early in many instances, where there are smart people who are thinking about something, but you look at the number of risks, the number of things that have to be demonstrated to make it even seem like a good market, seem like a reasonable thing, and say, wow, that's just too early. And I would also dispute this idea that we don't pass back interesting deals into the venture community. I mean, I've sent a bunch of stuff to lots of you that I think are really interesting deals, smart people, but I just am not. There are too many risks. There are too many things. As I say, you have to suspend disbelief about too many things for it to be something that falls within my part.
There's clearly questions that we're not willing to answer with our first check that some angels are. And quite a few, maybe you may not believe this, quite a few of our investments have come on top of angel money. I mean, I'm just going to look at the front row here. Ron Conway, Ivy, Ariel, and sorry to some folks out there who are out there as well. I mean, we're investors in companies where these guys were the first money in, or they came in right around the same time we did. And the reason is they answer questions differently, answer different questions than we do with our first check.
I'm sure we've got enough time there. Anyway, I'd like to thank both of you guys for coming up here and tolerating my language as well.
All right, posters. You know what? Let's start a little bit differently. First, I want to know, actually, how many people in the room are already angel investors? Can I see a show of hands? Great. And one other question. How many of you actually also invest or look into investing outside of the United States? All right, there are some people. Another thing, any of you investing outside of consumer internet, like healthcare, green technology, anything, some of the major areas we haven't covered today? Great. So I'm going to try to be relevant to everybody in the audience and not just friends of Y Combinator, people who have been investing in consumer internet. Maybe one good way to start is how I started on this and how it relates to some of the points that have already been made. So when I did this, started angel investing, I basically was kind of fresh out of Google. I was looking for something interesting to do. And I was actually really worried about starting, and I thought, you know what, I'm not really sure I can be good at it. Maybe the way to start it is actually working with a VC. And I met with a prominent VC who spent a grand total of 5 minutes with me to basically say, look, you know, we don't really train people, we don't really help people, we're not a charity. If you think you can do this, go out and do it yourself. And that was probably the best thing that happened. Fast forward 3 years to today, I can actually probably say that I made an investment with every single speaker on the list. I probably know at least 1/3 of the people in the room, none of which I actually knew before I got into this. So probably the best thing that I can tell you is there is nothing like learning on your own. I mean, a lot of great things have been already, a lot of great ideas and lessons, you know, Numbers 12, 15, great chapters for books. All these are great. But at the end of the day, I think there's nothing like actually kind of rolling up the sleeves and doing it yourself and then keep getting better at it. And then probably the most important thing I can say is there is no magic bullet in this business, yet I think there is a right way to do it for each one of you. And probably the inspiration for that is you should be wanting to do this for the right reasons, and you also should not want to be an average investor, and you want to be better and different than anybody else who's doing it. If that's not in your heart, I think that's probably not the right way to approach it. I think given some of the elements that I've mentioned, like water and air, I'm also going to mention the elements, the earth and fire. I think some of the greatest founders have fire in them, and what makes them really great is never taking no for an answer and being persistent. I think earth is also a great thing because a lot of people that have money or that have good names or good companies, affiliations, tend to have huge egos and tend to not have their feet touch the ground. And I think that's also really important because every day I learn something new by doing this, despite the fact that I have repeatedly done a lot of stuff, repeatedly worked with a lot of interesting people. A couple other things that I want to say is that, again, approaching this example of what is the way to do it for you, a lot of times I'll go to a restaurant and I'll know which wine to pick and people get impressed. They're like, wow, you're a great wine picker. And whereas all I have is basically I know what I like. And I just remember myself comes up as I think there is very similar in a way that such thing as, you know, some important VC has picked a company, so that must be a great company, or, you know, this is the success factor, or that is the success factor. I think the most important thing is just to be able to understand different lessons from different contexts and being able to apply it in your situation. So again, just to give you some examples, we talked about, you know, how to do deals. You do convertibles, you don't do convertibles. You know what? my first exit was a convertible, and if I weren't careful about the terms, I wouldn't have made any money out of it. And there has been some times when if I refused to invest on a convertible, I wouldn't have one of my greatest exits. In the same way, there are deals where you can get in really cheap, but sometimes you don't. My largest exit was a company that I thought was crazy to get involved with a crazy price. But I liked the founder, and I liked the idea, and I invested anyway. And that ended up generating my largest exit. And some of the deals that I'm involved are really cheap, but you know what? They haven't really gone anywhere. So these are important things to consider. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is a little bit like surfing a fine wave. None of these situations that I encountered is very black and white. There's always different contexts, different people, so just keep that in mind. Some of the things that I can tell you in terms of what did help me is I think it's really important to be successful in this business, to really do multiple deals and to have a strong brand. I mean, Naval mentioned it and it did come up. I think one of the reasons why this is really important is if you don't have a brand, good things are not going to come to you. So it's very important to kind of make it clear how you differentiate and how you can add value to something to really for people understand and relate to you and for you to actually connect with the people. A couple other things that I want to mention. I think one of the important things about brand is being persistent and consistent. And I feel that a lot of the people that are successful in this business are also good social people. They're what I call connectors because, again, through these connections and showing up to the meetings and meeting people one at a time, that's when you actually, over time, end up meeting some really great companies and really great people. So I would say that's one of the important things. And then talking about fun and what's really important and how do you define success. I mean, you can define success as financial metrics. I'm not going to say that's not important. I think that's extremely important. I already made 40 investments and I have 4 exits and I'm really proud of it. It's great confirmation that I can actually have money coming back. But I also have situations, for instance, 2 of my companies won World Economic Forum Award, Mint and Meraki. It makes me very proud. I managed to get deal flow from 18 countries and I have visitors to my website from 98 countries because I'm an international guy and I spend a lot of time and that to me is a lot of fun. Having a network outside of the U.S. is really important. For instance, nobody really talked about investing outside of the U.S. And I'm consistently trying to meet people in Silicon Valley and outside because I totally think that there could be a Google 5 to 10 years from now where the founders are actually not in the U.S. We can change our immigration policy and maybe tomorrow Sergey will decide not to come to the U.S. and stay in his own country and start a company. So it's definitely something to think about. I wouldn't really say it's for everyone, but there is definitely aspects and angles that I think could lead to success. There is definitely no one single path. And at the end of the day, you got to find what makes it fun for you. So that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that, for instance, that I'm really proud of the fact that some of these companies have won World Economic Forum, and sometimes it's totally different. I mean, Justin TV is one of my great examples. When I met Michael Seibel and Justin Kahn, Justin had the camera on his head, and I look at these 2 guys, and it was literally a dream with a bunch of smart people. Fast forward to now, they have 26 million users, and I'm really proud, despite the fact that multiple people thought it was kind of not a really great idea, being able to stick with it and support them through good and bad. It's extremely rewarding to me, and it's great for that conviction to be rewarded. So I really hope that you too can find great companies to get involved with and have fun doing it and hopefully generate some great results.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff on Twitter, Jeff Claret. Welcome to the Angel community. Unlike the VCs, we are truly a community because we depend on each other. As most of the previous speakers have said, we all put together syndicates, either as lead or as followers, and we all depend on each other to build that syndicate, put the money in, and help the companies. Which means that there is very, very little competition. Only once or twice in my 16 investments, as either a business angel or as an early-stage VC, have I found myself in a situation of competition with some of my friends. And I can tell you, it sucks, and we felt very, very sorry about it. Mike related to the experience of the outsider. He came from Texas, not Paris, Texas, but Texas. And I'm from the other Paris, the French one. I was born, raised, educated there, just started there, and eventually made my way to the US 9 years ago to become